Welcome to the Peaceful Parenting Podcast. I'm your host, Sarah Rosensweet, mom of 3 young people, peaceful parenting coach, and your cheerleader and guide on all things parenting. Each week, we'll cover the tools, strategies, and support you need to end the yelling and power struggles and encourage your kids to listen and cooperate so that you can enjoy your family time. I'm happy to say we have a great relationship with our 3 kids. The teen years have been easy and joyful, not because we're special unicorns, but because my kids were raised with peaceful parenting. I've also helped so many parents just like you stop struggling and enjoy their kids again. I'm excited to be here with you today and bring you the insight and information you need to make your parenting journey a little more peaceful. Let's dive into this week's conversation. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Peaceful Parenting Podcast. Today's episode is a solo episode with me, and we are talking about the common pitfalls of peaceful parenting and what you can do to avoid them or to fix them if you've already fallen into that trap. Before we get started, I just wanted to mention that if you are new to peaceful parenting and you would like to take a deeper dive into peaceful discipline, or if you've been practicing peaceful parenting for a while, but you still sometimes get a little bit caught up in, what are the differences between limits and consequences? What are the differences between consequences and natural consequences? How do you get kids to listen without yelling or threatening or punishing? Then you should come to my free workshop, Thursday, July 27th at 8 p.m. Eastern. This is a free workshop called Peaceful Discipline, How to Get Kids to Listen Without Threatening, Punishing, or Bribing. And we're going to go over all of the big ideas of setting limits with kids and, how do you get them to listen if you don't want to have those things in your toolkit. Again, it's a free workshop. It's Thursday, July 27th at 8 p.m. Eastern. If you can't make it live, sign up for it anyway, and I will send you the replay. So go to sarahrosensweet.com/free workshop. That's sarahrosensweet.com/free workshop. We will have the link also in the show notes. If you're listening to this after the workshop has already taken place, if it's just a little bit after, you can still get the recording. If it's quite a ways after, you can sign up for the wait list to be notified when I offer it again. So again, if you would like a refresher or just a bit of a reframe on peaceful discipline, or if you're new to peaceful parenting, this is a great place to start. It's going to be a live workshop. I'll be there answering all your questions, and Corey will be there as well. And we are just going to really do a really good deep dive into peaceful discipline. So sarahrosensweet.com/free workshop. If you can't make it live, sign up and we will send you the recording. Okay, let's dive into today's topic, which again is the pitfalls of peaceful parenting and what to do about them. These pitfalls, we're going to talk about 8 of them, are the things that I've learned over my years of coaching and through my different communities and through training peaceful parenting coaches. These are all the things that I've learned. They're not in any particular order, but I just thought it was really worthwhile to just go over some of these pitfalls and maybe you can see if you're getting caught up in one of them. So our pitfall number 1, I call it getting caught up in the shoulds. So there's always an expectation gap, right, in different areas of parenting. And I call the expectation gap that space between what your child is doing and what you think they should be doing, or what their expectation for them is. So maybe you have an expectation that your child should be sitting at the table for at least 15 minutes or sitting still at the table or something like that. And, the danger here with this pitfall is if we have this really strong idea in our head of what our child should be doing, then we can lose our patience and lose our compassion for our child. It really predisposes us to being reactive, yelling, getting annoyed. So anytime we hear ourselves saying, oh, my child should be doing this, we really want to stop and investigate that. Because if we lose our patience, we can't really be effective. We also, might hurt our relationship with our child. And if we lose our compassion, then we are, we're more predisposed to not being peaceful, right? If we think they're doing it on purpose. So we really, the fix here is we really want to remind ourselves of the big idea in peaceful parenting that our child is doing the best they can. And really, children do want to please us. They do want to make us happy. And if they're acting out of alignment with connection or acting out of alignment with that desire to be, quote, good, it's because there's something else going on. So the next thing we want to do is look at that expectation. Okay, so there's something else going on for our child. Why aren't they sitting at the table? And, maybe we end up dropping the expectation. We realize it was an unreasonable one and that, they're too small to be expected to sit for that long at the table. Or maybe some days they can, but they've had a particularly tough day or they're really excited about something. So we really want to look at the expectation and decide, is this an expectation that I can drop? Can I drop this expectation or this demand that they sit still at the table for 15 minutes? And if I really, don't want to drop it or don't feel that I should drop it, maybe it's a special dinner and grandma's over and we really want the child to sit with us at the table. What kind of support can we give our child to meet our expectation? Can they sit on your lap? Can they color at the table if everyone else is done eating? So we really want to think about that. What kind of support does our child need to close that gap between our expectation or that should and what's happening? And again, it's just as valid to drop the expectation as it is to help the child meet it. It really depends on the situation. So that's the getting caught up in the shoulds. Anytime you hear yourself saying, my child should be doing this or should be able to do this, that should be like a little warning sign to you that you need to think more carefully and maybe take some proactive or preventive measures or give your child some support to be able to meet that expectation. The second pitfall that I see with parents in peaceful parenting is that they're not thinking long term. This can be really hard when we see that our child is, not doing exactly what we're asking them to do, or they're melting down and, having a hard time about something. Most of us were raised with conventional parenting, and conventional parenting is very adult centered and adult convenience and adult preference centered. So it really looked like a lot of us were raised with the idea that, we're going to always do what our parents tell us to do, or, we have to sort of push down our own desires as children so that we would get the love that we needed. So when we see our children acting out of alignment with that and, their big feelings are messy or they're really, letting us know in no uncertain terms that they're not happy about something, it can be really tough for us because it can feel like it's not working. That's the danger here of this pitfall, is we can feel like, peaceful parenting doesn't work. So the fix here is that we need to remind ourselves that it's a long game, right? We need to remind ourselves that we are raising adults and we are not going to see all of the fruits of our labors right in the moment. I mean, we do sometimes. Definitely, there are things about peaceful parenting that do make life easier and more fun and more joyful and make kids more cooperative in the moment. And you will see some of those short-term gains when you are doing peaceful parenting. There are a lot of times where you really have to think about the long-term process and that you're not going to see, perfectly behaved children because you're doing peaceful parenting. So we want to remind ourselves, not only is it a long game, but that our children are still immature. Their brains are still developing. Depending on their age, they may have little to no impulse control or at least unreliable impulse control. And that we want to just, remind ourselves that we're parenting for this long-term goal of raising kids who are kind and compassionate and helpful and independent, and that we will get there if we are following peaceful parenting. And if you are following peaceful parenting, you will get there, even if it looks messy in the short term. And finally, along these lines, we want to remember that even though our children might not be doing it exactly, they're watching us and they're seeing what we are doing and they're listening to what we say. And so we always want to model the behavior that we want to see. We want to be the people that we want them to be. And a lot of times that can feel like we're being, quote, soft, or that we are caring too much about trying to be flexible. But we really are modeling graciousness, modeling being a good person, modeling being a caring and empathetic person. And you all know that one of the big ideas of peaceful parenting is kind, firm limits. So here, when I talk about modeling that behavior, I'm talking about that kindness, right? So that's a good segue into our third pitfall of peaceful parenting, because I want to talk about the firmness of kind, firm limits. And if you didn't catch it at the top of the show, we do go into all of this in much more detail in my free workshop that's coming up next week at sarahrosensweet.com/free workshop. If you missed it, there's going to be a place there to sign up to be notified the next time we give it. But let's shift into our number 3 pitfall, and that's about limits. And it's about parents being afraid to show up as a strong leader. So what does that mean? Our kids need to know that we've got this, right? That we are capable and we're not going to be sort of swayed and bowled over by their depth of feeling and their sort of messiness that I was talking about in our last point. So we call that being a strong leader. And the danger here, if we're not a strong leader, if we are like the pilot that is, saying over the loudspeaker that they don't know what they're going to do because there's so much turbulence, and then everybody on the airplane gets freaked out because, if the pilot doesn't know what's going on, we're all in trouble, right? So we have to be really like calm, confident, sturdy, strong leader. And the danger here is that if we aren't, kids can get anxious just like you would on that airplane, or they could get bossy and feel like if we're not in charge, they have to be in charge. The fix here is part of being a strong leader is that we need to take responsibility for tough decisions. So, we're not going to tell them that the TV's broken. We're going to tell them we're not watching any more TV today. That's just a small example, but often it can be tempting to avoid being the quote bad guy. But if we do that, we're missing an opportunity to be a strong leader and to show them that we can handle this, right? We can handle all of their big feelings. And that's part of that setting a firm limit, is that you've thought carefully about the limit. We're going to talk about that more soon, but that you're setting the necessary limits for health and safety, and that when kids are unhappy about that, we're okay with holding that limit. You do have to wear your bike helmet when you're riding your bike, or you do have to wear your seatbelt, or you can't stay up all night, or whatever the limit is, even if they're unhappy about it. That's part of being a strong leader. As we remind ourselves that we've got this, we have to remind ourselves also to not take it personally when they're upset. You might hear that you're the meanest mommy, or I hate you. And we just have to remind ourselves that it's okay if our children are upset with us, and that being a strong leader means that we're sort of untouchable in terms of being swayed by their big feelings. Our fourth pitfall that I want to talk to you about is when we ask too many times. This was actually something that I really struggled with when I was a parent of younger children, is that I would ask and I would ask and I would ask, and I would be really nice about it, and people would ignore me, and then I would get really frustrated, right? So that's the danger, is that we are sort of teaching kids not to take us seriously because we keep asking. And if they know we're going to keep asking, then why do they have to listen to us the first time? But then we get so frustrated because we're being so nice about it and no one's listening to us. So we really, if you're a parent who finds yourself asking the same thing over and over again, time to get ready, time to get ready, time to get ready, and everyone's still playing, then this is what I want you to do. I want you to make sure that you're getting their attention effectively the first time. Because kids, often they could be ignoring us on purpose because they know that we're going to keep asking, and if we're not yelling, we must not be serious. However, sometimes they're just really busy playing, and they are so engrossed in their world that they don't actually hear us. So we want to make sure we're getting their attention in an effective way. So, instead of calling out across the room, you actually go over to them, tap them on the shoulder. If your child is comfortable with eye contact, get them to look at you in the eye, but you really want to get in their face in a friendly way. And then, say their name, and then say something like, I have something important to tell you. And then you can say whatever your request is, or, it's going to be time to get ready in a few minutes, or it's time to get ready now. And, really just make sure that you have their attention before you ask them. And then you ask them once. And if you don't get action or movement, then you want to think, okay, what can I do to support my child in whatever I'm asking them to do? So if they're quite little, you might, little or medium, I guess, you might engage them in play to get them on board with whatever you're trying to get them to do. Play is such a great way to get cooperation and to get that win-win solution. If they're a little bit older, you might ask them for help to solve the problem. We have to be in the car in 5 minutes and I can see that you're not dressed yet. What can we do to solve this problem? Or you might ask them how you can help them. Do you need any help? Do you need any support? We're working towards this goal here. So really you want to think about getting their attention in an effective way, asking once, and if you don't get movement, what can you do to support them, to help move them along? Our fifth pitfall of peaceful parenting, we've got 3 more after this, so I'm getting through them, but these are all so important that I just really want to make sure that you get all of these big ideas here. Our fifth big idea is not having a community and really feeling alone in doing this kind of parenting. You might join my free Facebook group called Peaceful Parenting with Sarah Rosensweet. You might think about joining my membership when it's open again. That's not going to be until the fall, but you can go to my website, sarahrosensweet.com membership, and you can get on the wait list to join the membership. Those are resources I have for community, but you can maybe seek out your own community either in real life or online, but trying to find some like-minded parents where you can support each other. This can feel really lonely if everyone around you is telling you that you're too soft, or your kids really need consequences, or what that kid needs is a good timeout, or even a spanking, or whatever. It can feel very, very lonely to be doing this on your own. And so having that community is just so, so important, even if it's one person. I know Hand-in-Hand Parenting has this lovely tool called a listening partnership, where you have somebody, you trade off listening time, or somebody just, literally all you do is talk to someone and they listen empathetically, and then they talk to you while you listen empathetically. So just finding something that's meaningful for you, whether it's an online community or a real life community, or just one person who is doing the same thing, but really trying to find someone who shares your values in peaceful parenting. Our sixth big idea here, or a big pitfall in peaceful parenting, and I see this come up so much, and this is something we're going to be talking about in the free workshop I mentioned, is not being intentional about limits. So this is really, really hard, because sometimes as parents, we just have like this knee-jerk no about things, right? Or sometimes we think that, well, this is going against conventional wisdom, so I should do it. Like, the kids have to have a bath every night, because somehow bath every night has become part of the North American bedtime routine. Most kids don't need a bath every day. I mean, I guess, we're in the day camp season of sand and sunscreen and dirt, so maybe in the summer, but most of the year, kids don't need a bath every day. And the danger here is if kids are sensing that we are being arbitrary, like the bath every day, or we're power tripping over them, or being controlling, like, I would want to have a bath after, doing whatever during the day, so therefore my child should want to have a bath, or it's just something that we think is a good idea, even though if it doesn't matter. Like, for example, I was talking to one parent who got in a big fight with their child about whether they were going to brush teeth first or put pajamas on first. And sometimes there are these things that we hold on to that really don't matter. Or even if it's something that, you look back on in 20 years and ask yourself, will I remember this? So I really want us to be very intentional about limits. The danger is that we get into power struggles with our kids. That's the immediate danger. But the danger over time is that our relationships are strained. I mentioned being controlling, arbitrary, power tripping. All those things are going to deplete the goodwill between you and your child and make them not trust you. It's really important to have a really beefy goodwill bank. And all of our connection strategies at Peaceful Parenting are putting deposits into that goodwill bank, right? Every time we delight in our child, or do special time, or do some other way to show them how much we love them and to increase that connection, we're putting in those deposits. And every time we're flexible, we listen to what our child wants and we try to do it if we can, we are also putting deposits into that goodwill bank. So we really want to think about being intentional. So train yourself. This is the fix here. Train yourself to stop and think. Do I really need to set this limit? Is it a health or safety question? Is it going to damage property or hurt people or hurt my child? And if it's not, then, think about how can we make this work? How can we say yes to this? Even if it's a little inconvenient, even if it adds a little bit more work for us. We can't always do this, but as much as possible, just really, really try to be thoughtful and intentional. Train yourself to say, let me think about this for a minute, and really be intentional about those limits that we set with kids to avoid that, straining our relationship over being arbitrary, power tripping, controlling, or getting into those power struggles, which really just are going to make day-to-day life harder. Our seventh big idea here, pitfall of peaceful parenting, is sort of related to limit setting. And I also see this a lot. So sometimes we can tell ourselves that we're setting a limit, but really it's a punishment in disguise. So I have a great example of this. A woman that I was talking to a few years ago, it's actually in a Facebook group that I used to manage. She had set a limit with her 4-year-old. She'd asked her 4-year-old if they wanted some milk, and the 4-year-old ignored the mom. And she asked again, do you want some milk? She had the milk out on the counter. Do you want some milk? The 4-year-old did not answer. And the context here was that they had had a new baby recently. The 4-year-old was having a very hard time. There was a lot of strain on the relationship between the mom and the 4-year-old. And this wasn't the first time the 4-year-old had done this ignoring of their mother when they asked them a question. So mom put the milk away. 4-year-old says, but I did want milk. I did want milk. The mom said, I'm sorry, I asked you. You didn't answer me. And now we're not having any milk. Milk is put away. And she came to the Facebook group to ask, did I do the right thing there? Because the 4-year-old then proceeded to have a meltdown, screaming, crying, trying to hit the mom. And the mom, I guess she had some spidey senses that maybe she shouldn't have set that limit. So she asked in the group, and the group said, no, you set a limit. And I think the mom had even said, if you don't answer me, I'm putting the milk away. So, everyone kind of weighed in, no, you're setting a limit. When I weighed in, I asked the mom, how were you feeling when you told her that she couldn't have any more milk? And she said, I was really angry. I was really angry and feeling really disrespected that she wasn't answering me. And I was quite upset. So that is the crux, that where setting a limit can actually become a punishment in disguise. Maybe if they were like on their way out the door, the mom couldn't have gotten the milk back out and given the child a cup of milk. But I asked her, could you have gotten the milk back out? And she said, yes, I could have, but I didn't want to because she wasn't answering me and I was angry. So we have to be very careful when we're setting a limit. We have to really look inside ourselves. We have to take account of our own regulation. Are we feeling regulated, or are we feeling upset? We have to ask ourselves, why am I setting this limit? Is it purely to meet the expectation? This is something that we're going to go over a lot in the free workshop. Or am I, quote, setting this limit because I actually am upset with my child and want to make a point? So this is what happened with this mom. She wanted to make a point. Do not ignore me or you won't get what you want, which is this glass of milk. And just as an aside, if this is feeling unfamiliar to you, coming back to the idea that, kids are doing the best they can, and we have to be gracious for this model and model that graciousness. So see, I brought in 2 of the pitfalls there. Model that graciousness of being the person who's compassionate and recognizes, like, let's give an extra chance to somebody who's just having a very hard time right now. And that's why, she was ignoring me because she's upset with me about having this new baby, and she feels powerless and does not know how to get her needs met. And one of the ways she's doing that, showing me that, is by being provocative and not answering me when I ask her if she wants a glass of milk. So we want to just really be, look within ourselves, see how are we feeling. Sometimes, a limit becomes a punishment if we're not regulated and we are upset with our child, and our tone is not kind, not compassionate, and our intent, if we're really honest with ourselves, is to make our child feel bad. All right, we've gotten through 7 out of 8, and the 8th pitfall of peaceful parenting might be the most important one, because listen up here, this pitfall is one that I have never seen anyone make progress in peaceful parenting or become the parent they want to be if they're caught in this trap. And that trap is being too hard on ourselves. So if we are too hard on ourselves, and I guess the pitfall would be thinking that you need to be hard on yourself to, progress or do better, we're actually going to be more reactive with our children when we are hard on ourselves. You can't do better by beating yourself up. And I have seen this over and over again in the past 8 or 9 years that I've been doing this work. And with the hundreds and hundreds of parents that I've worked with one-on-one, the thousands that I've seen coming through my communities, my courses, and my membership, the ones that make the most progress are the ones that work hard on giving themselves compassion when things are hard, or giving themselves compassion when they mess up. listening to your inner bully or your inner mean girl or your inner critic or whatever you want to call it, that voice in your head at 2 a.m. that says, I can't believe you yelled at them again 5 times today, or I can't believe that you insert whatever thing you're feeling bad about here. That voice is actually going to keep you further from your goals in the long run. What would you say to your best friend if your best friend came to you and had a horrible day with the kids? You would give your best friend encouragement. You would tell them everybody messes up sometimes. Tomorrow is a new day. And those are the kinds of things we need to tell ourselves when we mess up. Because if we feel bad, we're going to act worse. It actually makes us more reactive when we are going around beating ourselves up. Have that calm, have that compassion, and to have that compassion for our kids, we really need to have that for ourselves. So being too hard on ourselves, it's sort of like, no pain, no gain. It's like in our common cultural understanding that you have to really be hard on yourself to make progress. That's actually just not true in parenting. I imagine it's not true in a lot of areas, but specifically in parenting and in peaceful parenting, the harder you are on yourself, the further away from your goals that you're going to get. And it doesn't mean that we just say, oh, well, I fell down, no big deal. We care about this so much. We're always trying to do better, but beating ourselves up doesn't get us closer to that reality. So the next time you mess up, give yourself some kindness. Tell yourself something like, anyone in my position would have had a hard time with that, 3 little kids at the grocery store and everybody crying when in the checkout line or whatever. Maybe that was just me. But, anyone would have a hard time with that. And giving ourselves that grace, that compassion, that forgiveness, telling ourselves that we're doing the best we can in any given moment, that's what's going to make us be able to stay calm under pressure, be able to manage things in the sort of dream way that we want to manage them as peaceful parents, is by giving ourselves grace and compassion and love and talking to yourself like your inner best friend instead of that inner critic or inner bully. When you think about it, you can't respond with empathy and compassion to your child, which I know is the goal for all of you, unless you can also do that for yourself. So take this moment to think about this, final point that I've made. And after you, finish this podcast today, watch yourself for those mean thoughts that you have for yourself and replace them instead with kind and loving thoughts. And it's going to increase the kindness and the lovingness and the compassion in your home and in your life in general, and really end up getting you closer to your goals than beating yourself up ever could. That's it for today. I hope that you found these pitfalls and the solutions helpful. And I would love it if you would leave us a review and a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts, or just a 5-star rating on Spotify. The more reviews we get, the more people we can reach. And to that matter, share this episode with a friend if you have someone who you think could hear it. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for listening to this week's episode. I hope you found this conversation insightful and exactly what you needed in this moment. Be sure to subscribe to the show on your favorite podcast platform and leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts. Remember that I'm rooting for you. I see you out there showing up for your kids and doing the best you can. Sending hugs over the airwaves today. Hang in there. You've got this.